The impact of minimum wage laws on labor markets. Introduction. Minimum wage laws have been a cornerstone of labor policy in many countries for decades, designed to ensure that workers receive a fair wage for their labor and to reduce poverty levels. These laws set a legal floor on the wages employers can pay their employees, aiming to ensure a baseline standard of living for the workforce. However, the impact of minimum wage laws on labor markets is a subject of intense debate. While proponents argue that minimum wages can reduce income inequality and improve workers' standard of living, critics contend that these laws can lead to job losses, reduced employment opportunities, and increased inflation. This paper explores the effects of minimum wage laws on labor markets, considering their economic, social, and policy implications. Number 1. Defining minimum wage laws. Minimum wage laws are regulations that establish the lowest hourly, daily, or monthly wage that an employer can legally pay their workers. These laws vary significantly across countries and regions, with some places implementing national minimum wages and others leave the decision to individual states or provinces. In many cases, minimum wage laws are designed to protect workers from exploitation and ensure a basic level of income for those in low-wage jobs. Application. In the United States, the federal minimum wage has been set at $7.25 per hour since 2009. Though many states and cities have enacted higher minimum wages to reflect regional cost of living differences. Number 2. The purpose of minimum wage laws. The primary goal of minimum wage laws is to guarantee a basic standard of living for workers in low-income jobs. These laws aim to reduce poverty and income inequality by ensuring that workers earn enough to meet basic living expenses. By setting a legal wage floor, minimum wage laws seek to promote fairness in the labor market and protect vulnerable workers. Application. In countries like the United Kingdom, the introduction of the national minimum wage in 1999 aimed to reduce poverty and improve income distribution, especially for low-skilled workers. Number 3. Economic theory, price floors, and labor markets. Economic theory suggests that setting a minimum wage creates a price floor in the labor market, meaning that wages cannot fall below a certain level. In a competitive labor market, the theory argues if the minimum wage is set above the equilibrium wage, the wage where labor supply and demand are balanced, it could result in an oversupply of labor, more workers seeking jobs, and an undersupply of jobs, employers hiring fewer workers. Application. The introduction of minimum wage laws in a previously unregulated labor market could lead to a surplus of labor, with some workers unable to find employment if wages are set too high. Number 4. Employment effects, job losses versus job creation. One of the most debated aspects of minimum wage laws is their effect on employment. Some studies argue that raising the minimum wage leads to job losses, particularly in sectors that rely on low-wage workers, such as retail, hospitality, and food services. Employers may respond by reducing their workforce, increasing automation, or cutting back on hours worked. On the other hand, proponents argue that the positive effects of higher wages, such as increased worker productivity, improved morale, and greater consumer spending, can offset any negative employment effects. Application. A study by the Congressional Budget Office in 2019 suggested that increasing the U.S. federal minimum wage to $15 per hour could result in a loss of 1.3 million jobs, but would leave 1.3 million people out of poverty. Number 5. The impact on low-skilled and entry-level workers. Minimum wage laws are most likely to affect low-skilled entry-level workers, who are often the target of such policies. These workers typically have fewer job opportunities and may find it harder to secure employment if minimum wages are set too high. For young workers, immigrants, and those with limited education, higher minimum wages can potentially reduce their chances of entering the labor market and gaining experience. Application. In the United States, the impact of minimum wage increases on teenage employment has been studied extensively, with some findings suggesting that higher wages can reduce job opportunities for young workers in certain industries. Number 6. The role of inflation and price increases. An increase in the minimum wage can lead to higher costs for employers, particularly in industries where labor costs make up a significant portion of total expenses. As a result, businesses may pass these costs into consumers in the form of higher prices, which can contribute to inflation. This could diminish the real purchasing power of the wage increase, particularly for those in low-income households who are already vulnerable to rising prices. Application. After Seattle raised its minimum wage to $15 per hour, studies showed that some of the wage gains were offset by higher prices, particularly in the food service and retail sectors. Number 7. The effect on income inequality. One of the key arguments for raising the minimum wage is that it can help reduce income inequality by lifting the earnings of low-wage workers. By ensuring a higher baseline wage, minimum wage laws can increase the income of the poorest workers, narrowing the income gap between low and high-income earners. However, critics argue that the effects may not be as pronounced as expected, particularly if the wage increase leads to job losses among the very workers it is meant to help. Application. In countries like Australia, where minimum wage laws are robust and well enforced, the wage floor has helped reduce income inequality with a relatively low poverty rate among full-time workers. Number 8. The impact on worker productivity. Raising the minimum wage can have a positive effect on worker productivity. Higher wages can increase workers' motivation, job satisfaction, and overall well-being, leading to lower turnover rates, reduced absenteeism, and higher efficiency. Moreover, higher wages can attract more qualified and skilled workers to lower wage sectors, improving the overall quality of the workforce. Application. Research on companies like Costco and Starbucks, which offer higher than average wages for entry-level positions, shows that investing in workers leads to lower turnover and better customer service. Conclusion. The impact of minimum wage laws on labor markets is complex and multifaceted. While these laws aim to ensure a basic standard of living for workers and reduce poverty, their effects on employment, income inequality, business profitability, and overall economic performance remain contentious. The key to maximizing the benefits of minimum wage laws lies in careful consideration of regional economic conditions, pace of wage increases, and complementary policies to support workers and businesses.